Hi, and welcome to The Joy of Seeing Differently. I'm your host, Terry Heimer, and today with me I've got James Zhang, all-round awesome human. He is an agile coach and father of three.
Yeah.
And I've personally witnessed James lighting up the room just by his presence. So James and I work together, so I know you quite well, James, but maybe for the viewers who don't know you, if you could just introduce yourself a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Terry said, one of the main things about me is that I'm a father of three. My three kids, who I'm very blessed to have, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and almost a 2-year-old. And they definitely bring chaos into life. And I find it very interesting because the way I see chaos is it's actually exciting.
Right.
Whereas other people may see it as, oh my gosh, I can't stand it at all.
Right.
But for me, it's like you just never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, yes, it is stressful and painful, but most of the times I do think it's quite fun.
Right.
I'd find life would be pretty bland without a little bit of chaos.
Right. I got to agree with you there. Chaos brings creativity, it brings the unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe especially from kids, but certainly from adults as well.
Yeah.
It brings an energy too.
Absolutely.
So, the joy of seeing differently. I've seen you bring joy. What is it you think that you bring that helps you see the world in such a happy way?
Yeah. When I think about seeing the world differently, the number one word that pops into my mind is perspective.
Right.
Right. So I find that if you could just change the way you see things, you can yield very much different results.
Mm-hmm.
If I reflect on my life earlier in my when I was at my later teens, I remember I was just about to finish high school. Okay, and the only thing that I was focused on was getting into the Sydney Conservatorium of Music because I've been playing piano for about over 10 years at that point. I'm like, well, I didn't really focus so much on the academic side of things, so that's not going to do so well. But I love music and I love being able to just express through music. I'm like, okay, that's the one thing I'm going to go for. But just 1 week out from that, I attended a friend's birthday party, got into a little bit of mischief, and unfortunately ended up with a broken arm. This was just 1 week before the audition. So you can imagine I was just in that position where I was laying in the hospital bed. And the funny thing about being in hospital is that you have absolutely nothing to do. You're awake the entire time. So you just have a million thoughts just running through your mind going, is everything going to be okay? Is my arm going to heal? Am I going to be able to play the piano again at all? You know, all of these thoughts just rush through. And I just remembered that for me at that time, faith was a big deal. Mm-hmm. Right? Having something to believe in, having something to be hopeful for really helped me through that period of time. Not only that, but also having friends and family around just to support me.
Right.
And just really care, just show the concern and visiting. But I remember it took about 3 months to heal. And by that time I was thinking, okay, I think I should do something. You know, even though I wasn't able to get into the Sydney Conservatorium of Music, I thought, well, I'd like to get a job, you know, do something and contribute to my family to start building for the future. So at this point you may think, well, he didn't do so well academically. He's not going to go into Sydney Conservatorium of Music anymore. What does he have? So at that point I was thinking, well, what I do have is an ability to type really fast. You know, having to play the piano.
Strong fingers.
Really strong fingers.
Yep.
And a good typer. I learned how to touch type. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can look for some data admin type roles, right? Just punch in some details into the computer. So I started looking for jobs like that. And the interesting thing is, at that time I was just excited to get any kind of a job, right? Mm-hmm. It's the first job out of school. So I ended up going into an interview. It was the very first interview I've ever had, so it was kind of, I didn't know what to expect. But the guy was really, really nice, and I was just saying, hey, I'd love to go for a data entry job. So he said, look, this opportunity is a bit junior. You know, first you'll probably start off with just sorting mail. You know, you just help around, pack boxes, things like that. But there's definitely an opportunity to grow. I heard the word opportunity to grow, and I'm like, fantastic. I will go for this second interview. I'll go meet the person and then see what happens. Fast forward to today, like that was just history now. I landed that job, and after many, many, many years of doing different things, learning on the job, I'm now an agile coach.
Right.
So I'm cutting the story short a lot. But really for me, it was just about that perspective.
Right.
Because I could have easily focused on what I'd lost, which was the opportunity to be a musician, to be a professional musician and be a pianist. If I had focused on that, I wouldn't have moved forward in another area.
Mm-hmm.
So I often tell people that perspective is really powerful. Focus on not the thing you lost, because that's not where opportunity is. It's in what you've got left.
Right.
And just put your energy into that and see what happens.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I think also not just what you have left, but maybe what you can create as well.
Absolutely.
Other people might have said, well, I'm so caught up on the Conservatorium of Music that I'll wait till next year and sit the test again. Or,
yes.
And maybe for them that would be the thing to create that joy.
Absolutely.
It's probably going to lead to 11 months of frustration, though.
Potentially
good.
good.
Who you are, but I do agree that perspective is so important. How do you create the space to allow you to apply the perspective? Because I'm sure at the time, like when the news first came that your arm's broken and it's going to be 4 weeks in a cast or 6 weeks in a cast, and almost the penny dropped that you're not going to make it to the Conservatorium of Music. How did you create the space to allow you to apply the perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I think about it, it's about creating those opportunities to just reflect and just think about what it is that you are learning about, what it is that you're feeding your mind, so to say. You could either read stuff in the news, which is always focused on the negative, which I find, or you can read up on things that will help you grow. Okay, you can learn from what other people have done that have managed to overcome these kind of barriers themselves. Because we all face challenges, and the greatest learning is how they did it. It's not so much the end result, because it seems that society focuses so much on the end result.
Yeah.
You look at social media, for example.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone's posting up their picture-perfect food item, their picture-perfect travel destination, and you're thinking, well, they have such a wonderful life, when that is just a moment in time.
Yeah.
One of the photos that I often love to share with people is my family photo, where we took it at a professional photo shoot.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So it's got my 3 kids, got my beautiful wife, and myself there, and we're all smiling, right? What they don't see is the number of hours we spent trying to get the right angle, trying to get the baby not to cry, because that was the one day he decided to cry non-stop.
Yep.
Every other time it was just really calm. And then I have my older son who's just all limp and everything. And my daughter, she was pretty good for that day.
Right.
But then you don't see those kind of things, right? You don't see the things that people persevere through. And I think it's important to just remember and reflect that everyone does go through challenges, and it's just it's a series of steps that you have to take towards a goal.
Yeah.
And it's not the end destination that we should always just post and flag everywhere.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about what can I learn from other people? And the perspective piece is always remember that someone does have it worse off than I do.
Yeah, that's true.
That helps me to be real grateful for what I do have.
Yeah. I think that's so true. The gratitude part, I think that's really huge. But also understanding that everything we see that looks like an instant success probably has thousands of hours of struggle before someone got to that point.
Yeah.
And certainly the media and these days even more social media almost wants us to compare ourselves to that person.
Yeah.
And if we use like piano playing or something, I mean, I've heard you play piano and you're awesome. Thankfully, you don't have a broken arm anymore.
Yes, I'm grateful for that.
But for me, like I might go, I want to learn piano, and then I'll compare myself to someone who is successful at it and go, oh, I really suck at this.
Yeah.
Because I haven't put in the thousands of hours to get good.
Yeah.
And focusing on the journey, not just success.
Yeah, but specifically your journey too, because sometimes we can compare against other people, like you're saying. It's like, well, he seems to be making so much progress than I am.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And but you're both on the same journey to reach that destination. Perhaps both of you are trying to be a concert pianist, but you're like, well, he seems to pick it up so much quicker.
Yeah.
I'm a failure.
Yeah.
which is a really horrible thing you can do, because then that just kills your own motivation and self-esteem to keep persevering.
Absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned before, gratitude comes up for me a lot when things aren't necessarily going so well. If you can just remember something to be grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't do it much anymore, but I used to actually keep a gratitude journal.
Oh, yes.
And it became a habit that then sort of morphed into like a mental habit.
Yeah.
So I use gratitude as often as I can throughout the day. You know, last night we had leftover spaghetti bolognese, right?
Yeah.
It's not the most exciting dish in the world, but just applying a little bit of gratitude, because there are plenty of people in the world who went to bed last night without dinner.
Very true.
And maybe not even have a bed to go to.
Yeah.
I kind of pretend like it's the best thing ever. It's like leftover spaghetti bolognese.
Yay!
It's my favourite.
That's right.
And that kind of just changes the way things come out for you.
Yeah.
And I think also, just to sort of round out the perspective thing, there's a saying I heard a long time ago, and I don't know who said it, so I probably should look it up and add it to the notes. Things always turn out best for the person who makes the best out of the way things turn out.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Which sounds like a truism, and it is. But if you actually think about it, there's a lot of meaning in there.
Yeah,
and that sounds
absolutely.
It sounds like exactly what you were describing as well.
Yeah.
Even though, like, your dreams had been dashed,
Yes.
you carried on and made the best out of how things turned out, and built a fabulous career for yourself.
Yeah.
And you know, you're now, as you said, in a position with 3 fabulous kids and a wonderful wife.
Yeah. And the other thing is also, just because I didn't end up going to the Conservatorium of Music, it didn't mean that I stopped playing altogether.
Right.
Right. It doesn't mean that you don't get to enjoy expressing yourself that way anymore. Now I have the amazing opportunity to also play in a band every single weekend at church, which I absolutely love.
Right.
Right. So I get to express myself that way. I've managed to play a number of carols at work with people here at CBA that you never would have thought had any musical talent, which is another way to just have a lot of fun in the workplace as well. Back to what you were saying about the quote earlier, it really triggered another thought that I had before, and I'm not sure who this is as well, maybe perhaps we should look this up, is that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, is something we often hear. But the second part of that is the grass is greener where you water it.
Right.
Right. So often we are once again comparing with, oh, that person just has amazing luscious grass. And so you look at your patch and go, damn you grass, you're just so ugly and so terrible. But without once again seeing that another person has put a lot of effort into maintaining it, to watering it, to figuring out how much soil you should have, how often should I water this?
Yeah.
You know, what does it take to maintain that?
Yeah.
So if we just focused on, you know, taking care of our own patch a little bit more, we'd find that we'd have a lot more joy in life.
Yeah, yeah. And what can you grow if you really look after your patch of grass? You might end up with beautiful flowers.
Exactly.
Or a cactus.
Some people like cactuses.
But, you know, that's all comes back to what you want.
Exactly.
But I think that's a really valid point as well. So what you give focus to grows. So if you're going to give focus to your neighbour's patch, then you're not growing your own.
No.
You're just growing it.
Whilst you're admiring over there, yours is just dying and withering away.
Exactly. And that thing around comparing yourself to others, I think that's come up a few times.
Yes, absolutely.
There's really no value in that. Whether you end up feeling that you're, you know, not as good as someone else for any particular reason, or better than someone else for any particular reason, it's just not helpful. It's not going to lead you to a place of joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, even on the flip side, as you're saying, you may compare yourself with other people and say, look, I'm better than you. But what does that give you at the end?
Yeah, exactly. Other than arrogance.
Yes, precisely.
Or,
up in the ego, you know.
And even if you end up with a short-term, woohoo, I'm so good, that's going to be dashed
Mm.
the moment you come across someone who's better than you at something.
Exactly.
Because there's always going to be someone who's better than you, and there's always going to be someone who isn't as good
That's right.
at any particular activity. So, yeah, that's awesome. So, thank you so much for sharing, James. I think
Thank you, Terry.
That's wonderful. That's given us a little bit of perspective, a little bit of something to think about. So, if you're not experiencing joy, maybe you can apply a different perspective to see things differently and make the best out of how things are turning out. Thank you so much. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Terry. See you around.
Yeah.